I love that.
I was like, don't let me forget to record. Hi, Grace. Hi, Taylor.
Hello. Thanks so much for being here, Courtney.
Oh my gosh, I am so thrilled to have this conversation.
Ooh, we're so jazzed.
It's so weird that like I really love having challenging conversations. I'm like, oh, well, let's dig deeper. Let's really get to the root of it.
That's awesome. I love following your Instagram too. It's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
I've been learning oodles just in the reels that you've been making. So keep doing them because they are super informative. Like the whole "you don't know what you don't know" mentality, like that it just brings attention and awareness to I don't know what I don't know. So the reels are such a they've been super important for me. I can let you know that I really appreciate them.
So glad. Uh-oh. Did I lose you guys?
There you go. Now you're back.
Did you lose me? Did I lose you?
We lost you. There you are.
Yeah, we lost you for a second. It's okay. Courtney was telling us she just moved into a new space and is like, oh, the internet.
Yeah.
Where do you live, Courtney? What part of town are you in?
I'm in downtown Denver.
Awesome.
So like right a couple blocks from Union Station.
Oh, how fun. Where are you from originally?
Oh, I'm from Alaska. I grew up in Alaska.
How fun. What brought you to Colorado?
So long story short, I was in New Mexico for a relationship, and when it didn't work out, I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go. And so I had a girlfriend from high school that lived in Denver. And so I was like, I'll just go up to Denver for like a year or two, get back on my feet. And then I've been here 9 years. It'll be 10 years in November.
Yay, I celebrate my 10 year in May.
Oh my God. Yay. It's so wild how like in Denver or in Colorado, you just get lost in so much time.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. I cannot believe it's been 10 years since my lost little 20-something moved out here and lived out of a car. It's good.
Oh my gosh. That's always fun. I did a 2-month road trip through the East Coast, or excuse me, through the West Coast where I camped out in my car, and what a ride.
It's cool when you're 20, but then when you hit your 30s, it's like, no, you're homeless, dude.
Did you not hear? Homeless is like the new in. Like,
right? Yeah.
Home on wheels is the new trend.
Right. That's what everybody's doing these days.
Really
That's great. Well, we're going to wait just a couple more minutes. I know several people had said that they were sad they couldn't make it and requested that we record it. So you'll have a larger audience post talk. But we'll see if a couple more people are going to join before we dive in. And then Courtney, I'm going to pin you as the speaker. Okay. Instead of recording everybody, and then if there's time for Q&A at the end, because we have such a substantial question list that we sent you already.
I'm so excited.
We are too. We'll go ahead and allow for question and answers if there's time at the end.
Absolutely.
So, Grace said that she's joining. She can only be listening. She's momming right now, so she's present, but she just isn't conversing with us.
I've got my babes too, which is why I will be on audio and I will be listening, but I don't want you guys to have to deal with watching everything behind the scenes go on.
All good. All good.
Here we go. We have somebody else that's joining. I think Jillian's joining. And here comes Elsa. All right. Well, we got our whole board on. Yes.
Hey.
Destiny, how was your opening day?
It was good. It was, slow, but I haven't necessarily been promoting it or advertising it. I've just sort of been in the space and open, and whoever, wants to come in, I welcome inside. And, it was a good first couple of days, so I'm happy about it. Yeah.
Hi, Jillian. Thanks for joining, and hi, Elsa. We've got quite a substantial list of questions for Courtney, so I think we're gonna dive in now. And we'd ask that anybody who isn't gonna be talking to just take yourself off video for now, and then we'll have Q&A at the end if we have time. But it's so nice to have you all joining. And I'm gonna go ahead and pin while I'm talking so that you don't feel weird, Courtney, I'm gonna go ahead and leave this. I know I would feel weird if you like put my face up there and I'm just like watching somebody talk about me. So I'll just do a little bio. That Courtney helped me correct a couple of, one of the things in particular that I told everybody in the email was that her dad was stationed in Alaska, but it was her mom. So let's get to know Courtney just a little bit. Courtney Lanctot is our speaker for today, and she's going to help us learn more about the importance of diversity and inclusivity in the wedding industry. Although she grew up in Alaska where her mom was stationed, she did not seek out exploring nature or taking part in the outdoor adventure that Alaska had to offer. Ooh, that's hard. That's got to be hard to look back on. But it was because you said that you believed that Black people didn't do adventurous things. Like there was just some part of how you were growing up that was a perception. Later in life, she discovered an incredible love of nature and outdoor adventure and sought out why Black people don't do adventurous things. Courtney is passionate about guiding Black people into exploring the outdoors safely and confidently. She was inspired to launch her company called The Unpopular Black with her mission to encourage, I'm going to go ahead and mute.
Yeah.
Got a couple of people talking in the background here. I don't want y'all to miss this, so we gotta make sure. She was inspired to launch her company called The Unpopular Black with her mission to encourage adventure beyond the stereotypes and narratives of what Black people don't do, quote unquote. Her tagline at the bottom of her website says, encouraging Black adventure, live boldly, adventure beyond. Courtney now lives in Denver, downtown, which is what we just learned, and is going to share more about her vision and help us get to know her better. But since we have so little time and we have so many questions, we're gonna welcome you right now. Welcome, Courtney. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I am so thrilled to have this conversation and to, allow space for people to ask questions that, often aren't sure how to ask or what to ask or, are afraid of being inappropriate. And so I am open to holding space for those questions today.
Wonderful. We're so glad that you could join us. Thank you. And Destiny, you're gonna run the whole interview. So take it away, you two.
Oh, she's on mute. You muted her, Heather.
Oh my goodness, here I am. I'm here. I just want to thank you as well, Courtney, because when I initially messaged you, you were just so excited for me reaching out and interested in Black couples celebrating their love in nature, BIPOC love, and getting people to from Denver connected to the mountains and to more of our natural areas that we have in Colorado. And Heather did a wonderful introduction, but I would love to hear, you tell us a little bit about yourself. And so share whatever you would like with us as far as your journey into caring about the topic of more Black people going into and in safer ways, beautiful outdoors. The outdoors, that our association serves in the Arkansas Valley area as well. And yeah, personally about your background and anything else.
Awesome. I am, like I said, I'm really thrilled to be here and to have this conversation. A little bit about me. So I'm aware that I'm probably speaking to all white audience and who may or may not have had the experience of hearing or witnessing a retelling of the narrative of, Black people don't do adventurous things. And so growing up, and still today, to this day, that narrative is very, very much told and very much shared a lot in part due to, you know, the history of blatant racism in America, you know, segregation and Jim Crow laws, where it was literally unsafe to explore, you know, outside of your own community. And so out of safety, these narratives were told. And then now in our generation, in our lifetime, which technically segregation had ended in, you know, probably our parents' lifetime, if not our grandparents. And so for me, I grew up believing that we didn't do these things, and it was mostly because I didn't see any examples of it. There wasn't any representation. And so, you know, you just believe the things until you either one decide I'm tired of this shit, which is the point that I had gotten to, or you start to see examples and you're like, well, wait a minute, that actually looks fun. How do I do that? And so that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to introduce it to the wider audience of the community in order to, you know, pique interest, pique curiosity, and seek out what versions of adventure feels comfortable for each individual. So the way that I even got started into adventuring, because again, I grew up believing that we didn't do these things. And so the way that I got into adventuring in 2016, I was going through a breakup, and a friend of mine invited me camping. And as a distraction from what was currently happening, I, you know, sure, why not? Let's go camping. And it just really opened my eyes to what nature is and what it can be, and the possibilities of its vastness. And it wasn't quite convincing enough, but it piqued the interest then. And then 2018, I had a friend who invited me to go on a road trip from Denver to California, stopping a few times. One of the stops was in Utah. And so I was taking care of lodging and whatnot. And in Utah, middle of nowhere, Utah, there were not many lodging spots available. And so I was looking on Airbnb, and there was a cabin. It was like a cluster of cabins. And there was like one main cabin, and the cabins that you sleep in, you know, it was essentially just like a sleeping cabin, and you had to go to the main cabin for kitchen and toilet. And I sent it to my friend, and he's a Black man, and he responded in the way that I sent him the link knowing this was his response, or this is going to be his response, because this is a very general and common response within the Black community. And he responded with, hell no, Black people don't do that shit. I am not about to die in the woods. And that is literally what sparked my knowing I needed to create the Unpopular Black, as well as I need to start asking the questions and understanding why this is a narrative, why we believe that there are things that Black people don't do. And yeah, that is how the Unpopular Black started.
Oh, am I on? I didn't mute.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Well, thanks for giving us some insight into that personal journey that you sort of were able to figure out through friendships, through I guess lost relationships, and you know, trying to find yourself maybe a little bit more in distractions. And so I find like some of those things too even double as some of your inspirational moments. So, and that leads into the next question as far as what was your inspiration and mission with your business, The Unpopular Black?
So in starting to ask, so I've experienced both sides of the spectrum of, you know, one, being in such an adventurous place like Alaska. You know, Alaska is, you know, the wild man's dream place or wild person's dream place, right? And I lived there for 15 years, and yet I did not do any of the things. And so I believed that narrative. I see that perspective. I understand that perspective of not only believing that we don't do those things, but then having little glimpses of, you know, Black friends and friends of color who did those things, and just seeing how people responded to them. So there's that perspective, but then there's the perspective now of, you know, with my whole heart, I adventure. You know, I believe in what a gift the outdoors is, and what a gift the access to the outdoors can be. You know, I know that Black people do adventure, and so for me, I'm so inspired, and I lean into my work so deeply in order to help other Black people or people of color to seek and experience what nature has to offer. You know, to me, nature is so healing. It connects you back to yourself. It connects you to your community. You see deeper levels of life in just experiencing nature. It builds confidence. You know, when you survived nature in whatever capacity, or, you know, when you just tried something new, it builds a level of confidence. And I think that is something that is necessary in healing our communities, and in creating more of a connection with one another. You know, learning and understanding the perspectives of those who haven't had access, or who don't know how to access the outdoors or adventure. And so for me, I'm just here to encourage, to create a guide, excuse me, a guide in a space for my community to find themselves in nature, and all the possibilities that can be.
And I would also say, Courtney, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but after having a few conversations with you, a huge component of your mission is leading by example and fighting tokenism within, you know, the outdoor industry is what you've been working with a lot, but also relative to our wedding industry as well. And I thought that was something that you would be able to share with the association. We had a great conversation before everybody jumped on. So yeah.
About the representation versus tokenism?
Yes, and leading by example, and somebody who's truly like doing the things and not just a model.
So I'm on both spectrums, right? I actually do I model, but through doing, whether it's marketing campaigns or, you know, even just conversations with possible jobs, it allows me to have conversations to remind people that you know, creating representation versus tokenism really matters. So, you know, everything and everyone is connected nowadays through social media, through the internet. And so let's say you find a marketing campaign for, you know, something related to the whatever, mountains, wedding, anything, and you feel like you want to seek out, you want to connect with that person on social media. Well, it creates more of a community and a cycle when that person is actually a part of the thing that you are marketing. And so, if you, yeah, sorry, how do I say this? Creating the representation that connects people to real life, authenticity, these people and experiences that actually do the things versus I'm going to hire you and you pose like this. It creates more of a connection and more of a trust within communities. So I would like to challenge, I guess, everyone to, instead of hiring models for, let's say, like a wedding campaign or a venue campaign, and posing, connecting with actual Black or BIPOC couples who will use your wedding venue or whatever it may be, or who may be interested in actually using them in your campaign, because people find you through the authenticity of their connection. Everything again is now accessible to everyone, and so in finding that what your message's intentions are to be true, it makes it a lot easier for people to trust you. And that is one way to, as a wedding association, you all know that trust is one of the main things that people need to feel in order to hire you for such an important day, such an important thing in their life. And so creating trust through representation versus tokenism, I think is one thing that will really help to connect you to the Black and BIPOC community, as well as them to you.
Thank you. And I sort of like to sum some things up too, just to say that it sounds like there's a bigger translation and connection of authenticity and trust when we are actually able to use real couples who are interested in getting married in the industry versus those models that we would typically use for a styled shoot. And like the bigger question would be, how do we get there? And how do we make that connection? And in a sense, there's like, you want to market to them, Black BIPOC couples, that they can be in nature, but then how do we do that without the tokenism modeling aspect of things? And so maybe we could tie in the next question to that. If you were going to get married in the mountains, what would you want your big day to look like? And I think a few of the other follow-up questions will even answer that thought that I posed.
Yeah. Did you get that question? I did. I noticed that. Am I freezing up a little bit? Are we good?
I think you're fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So if I were to get married in the mountains, I mean, you don't get married in the mountains to be inside, right? And so I think, like, for me, pre-2018, I would have never had my dream wedding to be what I dream of it now, which is integrating the outdoors. Like, you know, I imagine I imagine just it being outdoors with, you know, either with the mountains in the background or, you know, all around us. I mean, I don't even, I didn't think I'd be speechless about this question. I thought of it, you know, when I read it, and I was like, oh God, but it's one of those that I think it literally makes me speechless of just imagining the magic of nature. You know, um it's really funny. Like when I am in nature, I'm literally speechless because it just takes my breath away every time. And I think that that is something that just integrates so well um with getting married in nature, you know, having being in a space that is breathtaking, that you know, is natural. You can't force it, you know, and just working around that, making your dream, you know, molding it into what nature provides. Um, I just think it's phenomenal. And I have started to see a few through Instagram, random Black couples getting married, or at least, actually, I know two of them for sure. It was their actual wedding, and then the other one might have been like a modeling campaign, but and it's one of those where it really, I didn't realize how phenomenal it looked. Because again, like as a community who we don't see that, you know, we don't often witness our community and people who look like us um, joyously frolicking in nature, as well as looking, they're getting married. It's one of those that it just makes me so happy to be able to see. And that's why I was so excited when you guys reached out, because I mean, for me, other people's joy just really, I mean, what is more inspiring than that? Witnessing other people's joy, you know, and so to answer your question, I guess I am speechless on what my big day would look like in the mountains. It would, I mean, it would just be the best thing ever for me.
Yeah, and in a sense, it would be a normal experience, friends and family and a celebration. And you personally have made such a strong connection with nature, with being outdoors, with your platform, with your mission, and with the unpopular Black. And we've talked about before that there is that baseline, that baseline connection to nature that's completely missing within the BIPOC community. And so I would say like a large part of that is actually having that connection that you are talking about, and is your main mission is being, it's like missed amongst the BIPOC community.
I also realized I should have prefaced in my telling you about myself, that like for me, having very real and transparent conversations are the most important part. And so I'm aware that, and we kind of spoke about this before the call, but I'm very aware that this can probably make some people uncomfortable. And just having this very transparent conversation. But I think it's important to be transparent in sharing what it's like from the perspective, from my perspective, as a representation of the Black community who does adventure and who has experienced both sides. And so I want to acknowledge that this can, again, probably be uncomfortable for some people. But I think that that's okay. You know, America is going through a lot of change right now, and a lot of things are becoming are coming to the forefront for us to have conversations on, as well as experience with a new level of awareness. And so, yeah, I just wanted to preface that. Also, that I mostly speak about myself as a Black woman, as well as the Black community. And that's just based off of, I only have the experience of Black. And so although I would love to have the conversation on Indigenous and people of color, I can't necessarily, because that's not my perspective. And so I just also want to make that clear that I can only speak from the Black perspective, and I am not sure how relatable it is from one culture to another. But I think that in sharing my perspective, it is at least a glimpse of the BIPOC perspective.
Thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
So would you be able to help us, give us any insight on what questions and concerns non-white couples might have about choosing our region to have their weddings?
Yeah. So, I mean, the main thing, again, going back to the main reason why this narrative was even passed down to us is safety. Helping to create confidence within your region, that your region is safe, that is welcoming. Because mind you, it's not just the couples getting married there, it's their family coming into town. It's their family traveling from, probably Denver, driving the highways, stopping at the gas stations, all the things. And, I think being very transparent, being very transparent on both ends of what to expect, as well as having conversations with locals, and really figuring out what problems could arise, and just making not only, again, the couple but the families feel safe. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the first thing. But again, I think it's one of those that how familiar with the area is the couple? Are they in terms of like nature and like those kinds of things? And so I think that just like I think just really being excited about being in your region is one of the most important things. And so safety, transparency, making sure that they feel safe in even just communicating any questions or concerns that they may have. It's sometimes hard to know what one of the things that I really instill is that, like, sometimes you don't even know the right questions to ask. And so just making sure that people feel comfortable to even ask, questions that may seem, obvious or anything like that. So I would definitely say, yeah, safety and transparency are probably going to be the most important things.
Okay. And thank you for that insight. I also know that a part of your work is to start reaching out on, or continue to start reaching out on a more local level with the chambers of commerce, the tourism panels, and continuing that narrative of safety and representation, which will definitely help move that along. And then on top of that, there was a resource that I believe we've talked about in the past, and Heather, if Courtney, you can't quite pin it down, there was a resource that we talked about, like a book that was being put together. Do you remember? Do you know what I'm referencing?
Sorry, you just froze up.
Destiny, I think you were talking about the digital green book that Crystal and Parker were talking about putting together. Yeah, from Inclusive Journeys. But also, Courtney, you're also putting something together and have a GoFundMe for. Will you talk about that? And then we'll put the links in for the Inclusive Journeys connection. And you can talk about what the concept of a green book even is, so that maybe that crosses over why two different organizations are working on this specifically in Colorado, and what the need for is.
And Courtney, I want to add on to that as far as, you talk about safety as an overarching topic right now, but like, if we really got down into it, what is that unsafe feeling that they're feeling with coming to, let's say, a town like Leadville, a small mountain rural area? Is it like getting out at the gas station and like not knowing what responses they're gonna get? Or is it feeling like they're gonna get lost on a trail or not knowing how to navigate certain areas? I would just like to, I don't know, sort of pin that down a little bit more if possible, to what that feeling is like.
Yeah, I'm writing down these questions because I will probably forget them.
Okay.
Okay. So the Green Book. Taylor, what did you say? So the Green Book it was a book that was created for I think the full title was the Green Book, a guide to the I don't remember the full, but also there was a somewhat there was a movie called The Green Book, and that will give you like a basis of it. But so the Green Book is actually it was a printed manual that was created by Black people, that I think it was started in the 50s. And it essentially told us where we could safely stay due to segregation, due to literally not being able to, go to certain gas stations, go to certain motels, go to certain restaurants without, again, being either harassed, harmed, or killed. And mind you, this isn't just in the South. A lot of people assume that this is just in the South, but literally all across the US. And so the guidebook told you where you could and couldn't stay as a Black person. where you could safely go or not. It allowed, it was essentially just insight onto feeling safe. And then, so it's funny, I actually just met with Parker, virtually just met with her a couple weeks back. And so what we're both trying to do is pretty similar. Her focus is more on like businesses and whatnot, whereas mine is almost exclusive to outdoor related. So I very much include businesses, but it is more, it is a niche of Black and outdoors. And so mine is called the National Black Adventure Directory. Hers is the Digital Green Book. And so, yeah, I'm excited for both. I will be launching mine April 1st. And so the point of that, again, going back to representation being so important, the point of the National Black Adventure Directory is to provide representation, information, and access to the outdoors and adventure activities for Black people. And just a guide to help us feel safe, feel confident, feel aware of what to expect, and just also like where to adventure. And then so going to the more specific question of what do I mean, or what do we mean by feeling safe? It's both levels of that, of, you know, feeling safe on the trail as well as feeling safe going to a gas station. So I like need nature on a regular basis, especially living downtown. And so my go-to adventure or nature space is Evergreen, and I take the back highway. And it's so beautiful. But so what I often do, I'll just go for a drive, and I'll drive up to Evergreen. And like yesterday, I drove to Evergreen and then just kept going. And I just kind of took the road and went the way that, you know, let's see where this goes, right? Well, to give you a perspective of safety or just, you know, fear, I make sure not to go down any small roads, a road that I can't turn around on quickly on. I make sure to not go down any road that seems like it might be residential. I literally have a fear of like, oh, can't go down this road, and having to pull into someone's driveway to turn around and them attacking me. Like that is a very regular fear. So much so that like the reality of casually driving down mountain town roads is often something that Black people that are not familiar with adventuring will even do. You know, if it's not on the maps, in terms of where like their destination is, you know, casually going the scenic route in a mountain town is not something most Black folks feel comfortable doing, just based off of, you know, you have to remember that even in the city, oftentimes we are told we don't belong in places and we are harassed or harmed. And by being in a place that someone, usually white, deems not for us. And so the reality of like exploring a mountain town comfortably creates a real fear. And I where not tokenism, but just showing that like this is a safe space for you. So there's that, but there's also the reality of like the trails. Luckily, I have not experienced a lot of blatant racism on while adventuring. I've gotten more things more like looks or under their breaths or whatnot. But I have also had friends who have literally had a park ranger have their hand on their gun just for trail running. And being questioned, what are you doing here, when they're in trail running gear, they don't have anything with them to be of a threat, and yet they are being aggressively questioned with the possibility of having a gun pulled on them on a hiking trail while they are trail running. And so you very much have both aspects of not just, in civilization where, whether it's a town or on the road, but also kind of like in daring adventure where there are both levels to those spheres. And so going back to what Destiny had kind of mentioned at the beginning, a lot of my work is based on leading by example. And so I try to share my experiences transparently. And just to give like a real world perspective of what to expect, and also the reality of like, yes, there are things that, there are real things that create real fear, but also the experience of adventure is absolutely I don't want to say worth it, because again, like the fear, but it's worth it. Yeah, I would never not adventure at this point. And I think that and of color folks who once they began adventuring, they just, now it's such an important part of their life, of my life, that now it's just a matter of showing up into these spaces and showing people that, look, we're here, we are not backing down, or we're gonna, for me, it's a matter of, I'm gonna be here so much that you're gonna get used to me, and then whatever problem you have, that's your own business, but I'm here. And I just want to encourage other Black and of color people to do the same, because the benefit of nature and of adventure is just so worth it.
And I think, everything that you're saying is great. I might oversimplify it in this sense, but to me, it sounds like that Black people are living in a constant state of simply not knowing, which is almost an inherent feeling that's happened for so many years, where they weren't allowed in a lot of places, a lot of different places, not just nature. And also, it would be terrible of us, I think, to not mention that racism is still a real thing, and also not to make it a super polarizing conversation, but within our past political climate, I feel like it's emboldened some people to come out of would work or feel like they can say certain things or act certain ways. And there's just that there's that tenseness. And I don't know what you think about this, but I would love to hear your thoughts. And I ask you all of these questions because it helps build such a bigger picture of the overall problem. And again, like digging deep into what is actually happening and what, you might be seeing. So I just feel like I really wanted to put that out there, potentially for you to also address, or we can also move on to the next question and move through things. But it was just something important that needed to be said.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that kind of goes back to like what I was, how I wanted to preface things of, because of what we are still experiencing politically, and it has emboldened a lot of people. I think, and that's the thing, especially in mountain towns where, so I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, which is a large, it's a mountain city. But so I'm familiar with what it feels like to be in these mountain towns and realize that the people who have always lived there like things how they are, and question why things need to change. And it's one of those things where and I think this kind of touches on maybe another question, but my mission is to encourage adventure for Black people. And as I become more successful in that mission, Black people are going to start exploring mountains regardless, and so as that begins to happen, and as people become more comfortable with it, it's a matter of, kind of like you get on board and accept that change needs to happen, and I think some people think that, not some, I'm very aware that a lot of people think that the BIPOC community is crying wolf and not understanding. I think a lot of people ask, well, why don't you just go to nature then? If you have such a problem, why are you complaining? Where again, like the access and information to adventure in nature just hasn't necessarily always been there to let us feel comfortable in the way that white people have, as well as, the access also includes property. If you look at the ratio of white people owning property and living in the mountains as a direct benefit of things like redlining, there you can see the direct route that has created this disproportionate gap of access and information between white and BIPOC communities to the outdoor and to adventuring and exploring the outdoors. And so that's something that I think is really important to just kind of remind people.
Thank you so much. And this is like a super maybe basic isn't the right word, but it's a super basic question of why do you think we should care as vendors, as people, businesses, about attracting non-white client couples to our region. And, you know, we asked this question because I don't think some people understand that they don't understand the why, like you were saying, as far as, you know, when somebody mentioned to you, well, if you have such a problem, like, why don't you just go into nature and just go do it? Or, you know, that lack of understanding, I think, is what we're trying to get to.
I mean, okay, so also the very basis of that, I mean, because I think that a lot of people who ask that question feel a level of upset or discomfort in it even having to be a conversation. And so the fact that a person feels that way also shows you that they are part of the portion of people who are it's hard to want to explore a place
Hey,
where
Courtney,
you
could
don't
you
feel
repeat
welcome, right?
that
Oh,
part? You went out a little bit, and it was a little longer than some other ones.
I saw that. Am I good?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. So why should anyone care, right? Especially people who don't necessarily want to welcome in, you know, or want to care about including BIPOC community. And this is kind of what I was just saying. So since I am talking to a wedding association, I will acknowledge the aspect of money, right? Like, you know, you all are business owners. And as I was saying earlier, my job is to encourage Black people to adventure. And as they adventure more, people are going to start getting married in the mountains. And so, do you want to be a part of that wave? Do you want to be a part of that that growth? You know, creating a trusted reputation for the BIPOC community, because it's going to happen. And whether you decide to be a part of it or not, it not only tells your potential customers, but as it also tells the people who work with you currently whether or not you are someone that they want to continue working with based on what you think regarding the growth and regarding inclusion. So it's up to you if you want to be a part of it or not. But then also, like, on the non-marketing and caring side, I think it's a chance to get to know a community, you know, different communities, and creating such a special connection. Yeah, just creating such a special connection to different communities that outside of your own. Yeah.
Thank you for that as well. I would love to add just a personal example. I honestly really do feel that people ask that question from a place of fear as well. So when, for the sake of a scenario, when a white person continues to ask, well, why should we care? Why should we cater to so and so, the Black community? It comes from a place of fear, I feel like, because they almost feel like something's getting like taken away from them, or that Black people are being treated more special. And so then, well, what about me? And it's that whole narrative where I had some sort of diversity training and I just had like a light bulb click where we were doing like a role play conversation and let's say that I work for the city, somebody's coming to make a complaint about me. Well, why are we doing this for this community member? And it goes across the board. It goes from Black community members to disabled community members to youth to whatever. And these questions get posed, why are we catering to them? And then you sort of ask the question back to put it in perspective as far as, well, what do you feel like you're missing? Do you feel like you're missing something, or do you feel like something's getting taken away from you if we then offer this to so and so? And I thought, for me personally, that was a super powerful moment for me, for like, okay, they're coming and complaining, or they just don't understand. And then you pose that question to them and it sort of flips the script as far as like, well, how can we help you? Like, what do you need, almost? And I don't know if that gives you anything to talk about, Courtney, but like that's the perspective that I always think about.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the day. My answer to those kinds of questions, I think, yeah, I don't think I really have an answer to, or sorry, in addition to that, I definitely think it's, I mean, some people really just want to hold on to the things that have benefited them in hopes that it continues to benefit them. And I mean, I think as humans, we are very uncomfortable to change, especially when it's related to calling people out, and changing essentially the whole narratives of things. I mean, I think that going to that thought and statement, I think it, probably a lot of the fear also comes around stereotypes, people being afraid of, what would a Black community or a Black wedding look like in the mountains, thinking of all the stereotypes similar to, any of the other BIPOC community, of, fearing that will change the town, or not wanting those people in town. But I think it's one of those where it's like, I mean, that's just another reason why there needs to be more of an integration of BIPOC into smaller town America, into your region. Colorado is such a white state, and it's I think just sharing space with other communities to really show, don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype of the stereotypes, and also what versions of the stereotypes are not necessarily wrong, but also not as exaggerated as, most have been. We've had the conversation before of like how joyous the Black community is, and not expecting, but being open to different cultural experiences, and being grateful to witness it in such a joyous and a happy way, like a wedding, witnessing other cultures' celebrations, and being not just witnessing it, being a part of it, being a part of that trusted space, I think is really a gift that I think a lot of people don't look at it as a gift and are afraid of what it stereotypically looks like.
Yeah. And I want to say one more thing, then I'll get off my soapbox. But I do feel also that a part of the fear that I've heard come from some people that I do know, where you mentioned talking about how you would love to see more Black people moving to Colorado and to the mountain areas. There's also an inherent fear in the white population, I think, that we should recognize, that when they see Black people moving into a community, they think that the city or the community is going downhill. And that's a strong stereotype, and that's a strong feeling that I feel like also should just be addressed and shared as to why we should care, and a part of that safeness that we've been talking about. So I think we can move on to the next question, unless you have anything else to add, Courtney.
Just related to the stereotype of a space or area going downhill when a BIPOC community is moving into town. You have to remember that there were laws set in place to create an economic divide decades ago that we are still feeling today, that is very much related to property and ownership. And so, I think it's really about educating folks. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. And I'm really enjoying having this conversation with you. I think we're touching on a lot of great points that people need to hear. And I'm glad we're recording it. So maybe if you want to use it elsewhere,
Probably.
Again, I think we just are having great conversation. So diversity in the wedding industry hasn't always been celebrated. How would you like to see vendors begin to make changes individually? And we touched on it a bit, just with you. Well, maybe we haven't touched on it. I'll let you share now.
So first things first, please do not seek out any stereotype in order to capture the Black community or the BIPOC community. Again, what people are wanting and needing are authenticity and transparency, as well as feeling like they have a safe space to celebrate in. And so sometimes the safe space isn't necessarily a place, but you may be their safe space. They may find so much trust in you that as they should, in whatever version of creating their wedding day and whatever else part of the wedding, they are trusting you with what you are offering, right? But I think also just creating a safe space in any and all ways you can, being transparent. I think also just the reality of like, not everything is a Black thing, or a indigenous thing or a Mexican thing. I think the transparency and authenticity is wildly important. But also like we're just humans. Everyone is just a human being, right? And so I think just coming back to the golden rule of treat people how you want to be treated. And so I think, yeah, just really, really doing your best to create the safe spaces. And I think a lot of times that means, especially in spaces that we're not familiar with, you are the safe space, and um, that is the thing pre Yelp, pre Google, is word of mouth. Word of mouth is a major part of representation. And if you are wanting to create and be a safe space for the BIPOC community, it will also be shared amongst us. If you're a florist and it doesn't always have to be related to what you do. I think it's just making us feel welcome in spaces. I think it's the gist of it.
Awesome. So then in a sense, the mountains do seem out of reach with engaged Black couples when they're trying to imagine their weddings. And if they are interested, what barriers might they feel and have when making decisions around having that mountain destination wedding?
I think it goes back to the thing that I'm trying to provide of just information and access, as well as feeling safe. And so, actually, repeat the question again.
Yeah. So when diverse, BIPOC, Black engaged couples are imagining their wedding, do the mountains seem in a sense out of reach? And if they are interested in a mountain wedding, what barriers might they feel and have when making decisions?
I don't think that the mountains feel out of reach. I think that okay, so in the last year or so, I've definitely seen a huge influx of Black people going to the mountains for skiing and snowboarding, and doing, renting a cabin for the weekend and having all their friends join them. I've seen that a lot in the last couple of years. And so I think it's just a matter of helping us to get more comfortable with other versions of the mountains, not just skiing and snowboarding, but like what else is in the mountains, and so I think that I don't think that it's out of reach. I think that that's where, finding and creating partnerships with, or even again, just like marketing, the reality of like marketing campaigns that are tourism based, if someone comes out here or lives here and goes to the mountains for skiing and snowboarding, and they happen to see, that they're another representation of Black community or BIPOC community in that town or doing other activities, I think that again, that's where the familiarity and the comfort of the area comes in, or of, spaces outside of, we're gonna just go here and ski and snowboard and leave. And so I think, yeah, just creating just more representation and visually helping Black couples imagine what it would be like to get married in the mountains. Yeah, I think just helping to create that visual representation of like, wow, that's actually really cool. I never thought of getting married in the mountains, but why not?
Right. So it is, in a sense, Black couples and people being able to imagine their lives and different aspects in the mountains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm curious to see how you'll answer this question. Do you think not seeing BIPOC vendors represented in the wedding industry in the mountain regions has an impact on whether or not Black couples decide to get married in the mountains?
Yes and no. I mean, I think, it's one of those when if a Black couple decides to get married in the mountains, I think they have an expectation that there's probably not a lot of Black people who live in the mountains to be a wedding vendor. So I think that I don't think that that's a deterrent at all. I mean, especially if like they don't necessarily have a connection. Like the only reason why I can see that being like a major issue is if they know someone elsewhere who is a wedding vendor in some sort. Like I can't imagine how that would be a deterrent. There definitely is the familiarity that the comfort and familiarity in getting married, but I again, as long as they feel that they can trust you and that like again they're not about to die in the woods. I think that like it really yeah, it can only be a good thing, I think.
Yeah.
So
it probably definitely more stems from a representation in other couples and seeing other couples that look like them versus actual vendors who look like them.
Yeah, that isn't as big of an issue. I don't think that's much of an issue at all. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's 2:18 and we have a couple more questions, but I think through everything we've been talking about, we've lightly been touching on everything. So, oh no, we're on our last question. So this one I'm really excited to ask you. I'm just going to ask you in general, what have you been seeing that has been inspiring to you in any of your journey, whether it's weddings, just outdoors, across the board? What's been inspiring?
These questions, I mean, I really love that that people are really seeking understanding. People are really seeking out, not like this summer there was so much more awareness of the reality of racism. And I think that these questions are just so important, or these spaces where people want to understand deeper because of their privilege. They're now asking questions of like, well, shit, I don't even know where to begin. I don't, not knowing what you don't even know or what you don't even know is relevant. And I don't always have, the mental capacity or space to have these dialogues, but it still is very exciting to me that that we are having these dialogues. And then also, again, just the reality of just seeing more Black people adventuring and seeking out nature seeking out how they can find it, whatever their version of it is, and it differs from person to person and their level of confidence and their personal experience. But it really excites me to just see growth on both sides, the side of the awareness of what has been wrong, and how do we begin, correcting it, as well as just the curiosity to explore.
Yeah. Well, and I am so happy we've been able to have this conversation. I know Heather is also excited, and so many of our association members, that we could bring you on board. You're local to Colorado, and you have a strong mission, and you were really excited to talk with us too. So that just makes it, that much of a great experience for everybody and to share with everybody. And that was our last question. I see one question from Taylor, and I'm going to open up any questions that anybody else has. Just feel free to type it in the chat. And then I can reference it and ask Courtney for you. So Taylor asks, what can we be doing in our community outside of weddings to make our valley and the beautiful nature we have more welcoming?
I feel like that was already addressed. I was just throwing out questions so I didn't forget them. But I feel like you did a great job addressing that, Courtney. I mean, you're welcome to go further into that if you want, but you definitely don't have to. I really appreciate this. I grew up in a state that I actually looked it up, was 3.5% Black population. And so these are just things, again, like I don't know what I don't know. And I had no idea that is it called the Green Book?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I had no idea that existed, or that just nature and what you shared about the National Park Services. Like I had no idea that world even existed. And so this has been a super helpful conversation just to bring awareness to it, which I feel like is such, like, the word right now is just bringing awareness and opening up the opportunity for conversation. So thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. Yeah, this is I mean, yeah, I have very much I've very, very much experienced personally just a complete lack of awareness, and also like wanting to continue to choose ignorance and just not acknowledge the realities of today, the realities leading up to today. And so I very much like to have these conversations, and am open to again, creating the space for these conversations.
As someone who does want to have more awareness and does want to learn, but I feel like outside of you and a few other resources, my opportunities are not limited. But where would you suggest starting? I mean, like following your page has already brought so much information, again, of stuff that I didn't know existed or was going on. Where else can I go to get not biased, like not somebody who's just like on a tire, like, opinionated information of that can help me grow and learn more about how we can serve the community?
So I mean, I really think it a part of it comes from seeking out versions of what it's like to be BIPOC in America. Whether, I mean, I would definitely say reading, Audible.
Do you recommend any books or podcasts or?
Let me get back to, I will email them over to Destiny and Heather.
That'd be great.
Yeah, just kind of like a list. I also want to, I'm such a visual person. And so I kind of want to say versions of video and TV. I mean, or movies and TV. I think that the problem with that is that, like, oftentimes they are, Hollywood spin on things. But again, just witnessing, watching, seeing Blackness in America or BIPOC in America. And so just, so again, there's a movie that just came out called The Green Book. It was definitely a good movie. It was a little bit ostracized based on, they kind of created one of the main character kind of as like a white savior. But the issue is still very obvious. I will add some movies that I recommend to that list also. Just, keeping in mind again, they go through the hands of Hollywood. And
Right.
so not fully, true, but just again to help give an example of just what it's like to be in a Black in America or BIPOC in America, and then just kind of like times that by 10 with the idea of going into the mountains where, for the most part, a lot of previous generations definitely believe that we don't belong there. And so just keeping those things in mind, and just the awareness of what it's even like to day to day go through our lives. I will share a really important moment for me in last year. When did this come out? May. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ahmaud Arbery. He was a Black man who was running, just going for a jog, and he was chased down and then murdered by just white men who believed he didn't belong in that neighborhood. I felt very much ashamed to then continue to encourage Black adventure, because it felt like, how dare I encourage adventure into spaces that, we are so unfamiliar with, and where is the proof that we belong here, right? When we're asked that question, how do we say, no, we belong here? And so I dealt with a lot of shame from that, and really questioned whether or not I should continue with my work, because I feared for, what if I encouraged someone to adventure and something happened to them? And so that's really hard. And so just things like that to keep in mind, as well as seek out, as a Black person in America, we are often bombarded with, this person being harassed, this person being murdered, say their name, these things that are constantly reminding us that to live in fear in our daily lives. And so I think it's really important to, as a white person who doesn't have to experience that, to be aware in your daily life of, would this be the same if I were Black? Would this be the same if I were of color? What would my life look like if I were Indigenous and my people were told that our land is no longer ours? I think trying to find as much understanding is important.
Courtney, this is Heather. I thank you so much for saying that, and for so fascinating as I was hearing you say that, because I know that I shared with you that I grew up in an area that was not majority white. And so it was very strange to me to start going to small towns where it was like you would hardly ever see a person of color, if at all. And hearing you say that is just like, that's my internal training. But what comes to mind of how to do that is you have to learn to be okay with discomfort. Like that it hurts to think in those terms, and that you were talking about, like, change is hard for humans, but also choosing discomfort that you don't have to experience because of your privilege of skin color is not something people naturally do. And I think seeing stories like you're saying through movies and books is a really helpful way to start saying, okay, what would it feel like for me to experience what I'm seeing there? Because it's, you know, not that we need to do this, but at least in the beginning, it's just that one step removed. It's a story you saw that had a beginning and an end. And so just starting to relate in those terms. But even knowing about our own history in Colorado, we had in through the 1900s, a lot of sundown towns, like actual towns where if you were not white and you were still in the town limits, that people, there were lynchings, there were attacks. And that was not that long ago. I mean, even Loveland had a small sign under their motto of the Sweetheart Town. They had this little sign that said, "We observe Jim Crow laws," in Colorado. And that was not that long ago. And so I think just even knowing about our own history and realizing, like, I think, like, I'm a little bit emotional because for me, the hard part of like wanting to serve people of color and Black people is that I don't want to bring them here if they're not safe. And that's why if you look at my advertising, there's not a lot other than that I welcome everybody. And I feel like that's pretty, it doesn't reflect my heart, but I really am torn internally. I don't know that I could keep people safe here. So it really helped me hear you say, like, be a safe space for couples who want to have a mountain wedding and give them a wonderful experience. Be the person that is making them feel, you know, loved and celebrated, and like, okay, in this space and time, maybe I can't do it for you when you're at the grocery store, but I can do it here at this moment as your officiant. And that really helped me in how I'm thinking about that. But I've really been torn because honestly, I see why people wouldn't feel safe coming to areas like this. And I hear you saying, and I love this, that actually, like, Black adventurers are coming, whether we want them or not. And I do. And I think the more we see what is different and it becomes more what we see, it's no longer as different. And so just props to you for being willing to be that first person and to bring people to be, you know, the people who are coming and you saying, you're going to see me here over and over again, whether you want to or not, get used to it, because I love the mountains. And I think that that's so beautiful that you're claiming your right to love the mountains and be in nature where you belong. It's just really powerful. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather, for that. And I just want to do a quick time check. It's 2:34.
Yes,
we planned for this to be an hour and a half. So I want to respect everybody's time. I feel like you have to get off. I've seen a few people leave already. And just let us know that they were so thankful for those conversations and that they would listen to the recordings later. So are there any other last minute questions with that being said?
Can I ask a quick question? I'm on here twice. Sorry about that. Courtney, I'm so excited. I'm so glad I was on mute because I wanted to respond like the entire time. I just wanted to have a conversation. But I'm going to try to be concise about this. Oh my God. I just love seeing your face. So I'm really excited about your take on the economic value of being more inclusive and less racist, because I really have been struggling with our community recently, especially this last week. I feel like we're failing the people who are already here, let alone the people who haven't gotten here yet. And there's a lot of lack of hope about making shifts, but I feel like just having a new direction to kind of enter into that conversation for people who aren't shifting is really, really helpful. So I personally am very grateful for that. So my question is, as an association, we're an association that's pretty disparate, like in 5 different counties. And I would love to be able to hold each other more accountable as vendors, as association members, to kind of show up for the BIPOC community. And I would love any advice or insight about how we could hold each other accountable kind of from a distance.
So first I want to kind of touch on the economic aspect, and going back to like the stereotypes. And I just want to remind people that, I am pretty certain that there is a narrative that like Black people are cheap or don't spend on things, where that's simply not the case. It's one of those things that like anybody, if you don't see and understand the value of things, you're not going to pay the premium for it, And so keeping in mind that if we don't understand the value, if we don't understand or see the purpose behind things, it's hard for us to fully to financially feel comfortable in it. And so I think that that's something to kind of like mull over and keep in mind when it comes to like the economic aspect of like Black couples. And you may not have been speaking on that, but that's just something that I always kind of try to add in also, just as a reminder, no matter what skin color you are, if you don't understand the value of, if you don't see the value in something, you're probably not going to pay for it. And then going to your second question of holding each other accountable from afar, I think it's just checking in, and checking in and calling people out, and it doesn't have to be aggressive calling people out. I think I am like I said, I like to have challenging conversations. And so as you can imagine, I very much welcome confrontation, but that doesn't always look like, aggressive behavior or tone, it also looks like concern, concern for yourself, concern for your association. And I think, shifting perspective, if you have heard or witnessed someone being or saying negative things towards the BIPOC community, don't just keep them in mind or you, but like keep your business in mind, keep your values in mind, keep what you are wanting the association and your communities to look like and feel like for the people that you're wanting to welcome in. I think very often we avoid confrontation or conversations just because it feels personal, feels subjective. But what's the objective view? How does one person's beliefs or what they say and do, how does that affect everyone involved? And so keeping that in mind, I think could probably help keep each other accountable.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Can you hear me? I
can
think
hear you. Uh-oh. Am I frozen?
No, you're here. Sorry.
Okay.
It's Destiny. She's frozen.
I was gonna say, okay, is it me? Okay.
Yeah, you're all good. You're all good.
She's just writing
frozen
something.
she's frozen in a state of concern. We'll see if she comes back, but I know that Courtney, we are over time that we asked you to be here, and
Yeah.
your time is precious to us. I know you have some unpacking to do and some not being burnt out to take care of. So do you have any last words that you'd like to say with us? We're just so honored to have you here.
I don't. I just
For a really
I
long time. Also, did you hear anything?
Got you now.
huh?
Oh, wait, there she is.
Oh, she thinks I'm frozen. No, girlfriend, you
Wait.
frozen.
Oh yeah, she probably.
Am I
Destiny, wait. She's
Oh, there she is. There she is. Okay.
This is
Oh,
awesome. Oh my goodness. This is
the last
the
thing
mountain
was
internet.
that I also wrote down some notes for places that I'll add to the list for helping you to educate yourself on what has happened to and in the Black community that has not been added to our history books, our American history books, spoken out loud, because it's not okay, but also is still very relevant or has shaped the relevancy of what we are currently unpacking still. So I will also add places and events that have happened throughout the country.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to be sending out all of your social handles, your website, your GoFundMe page with the directory that you're creating. And is there anything else that you would like added to that? So that we know how to find you.
Yeah. Okay. Nope. I don't think so.
All right. Great. Well, thank you, Destiny. Are you back? It looks like you're frozen again. This is classic. It didn't happen the whole call though, so that was really impressive for Leadville. So that's
so glad. I'm so glad at least we didn't freeze during.
Yes.
So good.
No, that worked really well. Well, thank you so much. And if we can connect you to any resources up here as far as spreading your message and making sure that we're working together, to in general become a safe space, not just for weddings, but
Absolutely.
for families and individuals to come and adventure here.
Yeah. And I would very much like to keep in touch, and I'm so excited.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Destiny, I think you're frozen again.
Thank you so much, Courtney.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Well, bye.
Bye-bye.